Hi, everybody. So today, what we're going to do, just to kind of finish out this week, this Reagan-Bush end of the Cold War week, is what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to go through one slide here, but then you're going to read a pretty long article. It feels longer than it is. The font is not that bad, but a pretty long article that was written by a guy named Barry Posen back in, was it 1993? It's around that time. And again, it's this question of, okay, the Cold War's over. What does it mean now to have a grand strategy? I get the grand strategy in the Cold War, but what does it mean now? So you're going to read this sort of longer article. And then I'm going to put that chart that we talked about earlier in the semester. I'm going to put a copy of that chart unfilled out on Canvas here. And what I'd like you to do, you don't have to turn this in because I'm not really sure how that would work. But what I do want you to do is after you read the article, is I want you to sit down with that chart, whether you do it on the computer or by hand or whatever you do. And I want you to try and fill in the boxes based on what you've read in the article, what you know about the class so far. Again, the better that you can do this, the more you're really going to understand sort of how what we think about today is really shaped by all these events that have sort of moved through here. But the question for today is, Cold War's over, bipolarity made sense, or anti-communism made sense, depending if you were a realist on the first hand or liberal on the second hand. What the heck does the new world look like? And that's what we're going to spend really next week talking about as well when we start talking about Clinton and then Baby Bush, George W. Bush. So let's just look at this very quickly here. The post-Cold War strategy, I don't think this slide's going to answer any questions. That's kind of, again, what the whole point is the whole 1990s is this time of asking and answering this question. The Cold War was dangerous. Everybody buys that. One mistake and everything blows up. But honestly, from a foreign policy standpoint, it was pretty simple. If you're a realist, they're the guys with the other guys with power. If you're a liberal, they're the guys who are against freedom, non-democracy. It is pretty clear. It's hard to know who to support now. Like, who are the good guys? So some of these, in the 1990s, where there was incidents in Haiti, there was the U.S. mission in Somalia. Rwanda genocide is going to happen in 1994, I believe. So who are the good guys? I get who the good guys are on the Cold War. We're the good guys, amen? GBA. But who are the good guys in these events that are going to happen in the 90s? It's a very unclear question. There really aren't any good guys from the U.S. perspective. It's also hard to know who the biggest threat to the United States is. We're going to talk a little bit more about this next week, but China's not China yet. You can make an argument that everybody sees China becoming China, like the China that we know today, but in 1992, it's not a huge power. It's a big economy just because there's a lot of people, but not because it is the economy yet. They're just starting their economic boom at this point. Is it Japan? In the 1990s, Japan was a threat. That's super weird. They didn't even have a military. Who is the threat? We're going to talk more about that again next week. Or have we really arrived at the end of history? This idea that we've arrived at democratic capitalism has won, and we're good. It's just a matter of now coasting for the rest, I don't know, the rest of our existence. I'm not really sure exactly where that goes from there, but that's the idea. In the 1990s, the U.S. ends up developing sort of grand strategy as we go, which actually, and let me just be clear about this sentence, U.S. must develop grand strategy as we go, that's technically not grand strategy then. If you're making it up as you go, it's not really a strategy, it's just a reaction to events. The end of the Cold War really just came as a surprise. It was largely a surprise. People, it's like the coronavirus. You wake up one day and boom, everything's different. And that was the same thing here. And the added difficulty that's going to be faced in the 1990s is this: without a clear enemy, there's really no urgency to develop a new grand strategy. So while we can look back and say there really wasn't a grand strategy, in the 1990s, honestly, unless you were in the foreign policy establishment, that wasn't that big of a deal, because you just thought, again, as an average U.S. citizen or an average European citizen, you just were saying, things are good. You might even buy into this idea of we've really arrived. and it's just a matter of putting out these fires. Okay, so take a look at that article and fill out that chart, and then we're good for the week. So that's week 1. As soon as you're done with that, done. So see you in week 2.